Tackle him?
Yeah, you can either tackle him or hit him over the head with that hammer.
Many superstars who went from WCW to WWE actually had a hard time in the company, but not Goldberg. Or did he? What's good, y'all? It's your boy, the wild-haired warrior, aka XL, and today we are talking about Goldberg in the WWE. Goldberg has been in the WWE and professional wrestling industry for some time now. In WCW, he was a dominant force to be reckoned with. Goldberg at one point had an undefeated streak, he was a wrestling icon, and didn't even really want to be a professional wrestler. Goldberg was the Brock Lesnar before Brock Lesnar's. Although, Goldberg's MMA record is not really something to be happy about. Also, if you remember movies Goldberg acted in, well, can we say he had a great Hollywood career? Now, Goldberg in WCW was really something to watch. He really suspended the disbelief for professional wrestling fans. You always wondered when would Goldberg be beat and who would beat Goldberg. And then, of course, let's not mention Bret Hart. Goldberg always brought in the big fight feel to professional wrestling. Obviously, he sold tickets, and he sold a ton of merchandise on top of that. His catchphrase being, "Who's next?" But to me it was, "What's gonna sell next?" Now you might not know this, but Goldberg didn't automatically just jump ship to WWE. He was in alliance with many of the WCW wrestlers who didn't just automatically jump. But once the money was right, Goldberg made the jump, which saw Vince McMahon pleading with Goldberg, saying, Goldberg, please come to WWE, we'll make you undefeated, we'll sell 10 times as much merchandise, and you can do as many jackknife power bombs as you want. And on year 2, Goldberg said, you know what? Great idea. WWE bought WCW in 2001. You know that many stars who jump ship to WCW automatically buried pretty quickly, especially in the invasion. But some stars did make their way out. The not-to-be-named Chris Benoit, Chris Jericho, Eddie Guerrero, Rey Mysterio all had pretty good WWE careers, with Mysterio just being in the Hall of Fame. But I still stand by it today, Ultimo Dragon deserved better. Let's face it, falling over your cape is not that big of a deal. Goldberg would debut the Raw after WrestleMania, and he would go after none other than Hollywood Rock. Now, Hollywood Rock was a great gimmick and actually plays into seeing the future because Dwayne Johnson is Dwayne Johnson today. At the time, Hollywood Rock was absolutely hated and Goldberg just seemed like a good move. On paper, it looked like an amazing feud was on the way. According to Chris Jericho in his book Undisputed, How to Become a Wrestler in 1,372 Easy Steps, Goldberg was never interested in signing with WWE in the first place, and it was The Rock who lobbied and pushed him until he eventually relented. Now, signing someone who wasn't originally interested, probably a big red flag, but no one saw it at the time. Now, Jericho would play a huge role in welcoming Goldberg to the set of WWE. But it would work against him because just about a week into it, Goldberg and Chris Jericho would get into a physical altercation. That's right, the giant Goldberg and the not-so-giant Chris Jericho. And this all stemmed from a feud they had back in WCW, which this is WWE now, boys, let's play nice. And Goldberg would accuse Jericho of not wanting to do business with him, but Jericho was the first one to welcome Goldberg with open arms, so obviously this was something else talking out of Goldberg. And Jericho would confront Goldberg after hearing that Goldberg talked trash on his match. This led to a backstage brawl, and guess what? Chris Jericho, in a real fight, beat Goldberg. And Jericho, after the fight, would tell Goldberg, listen man, I can be your biggest ally, or I could be your biggest enemy here. And obviously, after Goldberg got a little messed up by Jericho, he was like, you know what, alright man. And Goldberg didn't really fight back after this. And anything that happened was only in ring from this point on. But the damage had already been done. Goldberg was already leaving this nasty, weird, Goldbergy smell all over WWE. And it wasn't the smell of what The Rock was cooking. Goldberg's character alone was built off of brute strength, but this would come back to hurt him and hurt a lot of wrestlers as well. And a lot of things were starting to look really, really bad for Goldberg. Comparably, his first year in WCW was a lot better. He was undefeated, but in WWE, he was leaving this stank trail. And WWE, like many times before with WCW stars, started to make a watered-down version of the WCW character of Goldberg. And just 2 months into his run, Linda McMahon would get in a conference call with Goldberg, and this would really hurt the big guy's feelings. And on the call, she would describe Goldberg as a big disappointment. And if you thought the conspiracies in WWE were enough, look no further because Goldberg had a conspiracy in his mind. He thought that WWE was sabotaging him. He felt that Vince McMahon was behind all of this. And this isn't part of the gimmick. This is really in Goldberg's head. So you take the fight with Chris Jericho, and now Linda McMahon, and now Vince, and everybody else in WWE at the time, it seems like everyone's against Goldberg, and he didn't like this. Now the highlight of this run was in 2003. We would see Goldberg in the Elimination Chamber, and this could still, to this day, be chalked up to one of the biggest runs in an Elimination Chamber. And he would absolutely crush Triple H. Now, at the time, Triple H was actually injured, and Triple H would need a sledgehammer to retain the title. But unfortunately, a lot of Goldberg's matches were not getting rave reviews at all. A lot of people gave him thumbs down, really bad stars, and a lot of people weren't even looking forward to any match with Goldberg anymore. The once huge star in WCW was becoming almost nothing in WWE. But fast forward Unforgiven, where Goldberg would win the title. And he'd win this from Triple H, and this was a huge push. Because if you know Triple H, if he's gonna lay down for anybody, they better be getting a huge push afterwards. And Goldberg did, and they kept trying, and trying, and trying to push Goldberg, but it never really got there. Even in modern day WWE, the pushes for Goldberg never went over. Triple H would put a bounty on Goldberg's head to get this title back. And this helped a lot of people take him seriously for a little bit. But with this reign, you would think there'd be a lot of matches that Goldberg could have to defend his honor. But you'd be wrong. Actually, not a lot happened while he held his title. The only superstars he would face were Mark Henry, Shawn Michaels, Chris Jericho, and Batista. And the matches never really went great either. The endings were always blah. And because of how bad Goldberg was being put over, his title run came to an end just 3 months into it. And Triple H would take it back in a triple threat match with Kane. We would see Goldberg gone for a little bit, and he'd come back in 2004. Now this is where it starts to get good, and the tale of two dragons start to clash together. Because when Goldberg would come back, he would put himself in the Royal Rumble, and guess what? He would go on to Brock Lesnar. Now this rivalry would start when Brock Lesnar would sabotage Goldberg, and it seemed like he was the reason why Goldberg lost the Royal Rumble match. And Goldberg would give Brock Lesnar a seat at No Way Out while Brock was against Eddie Guerrero, which led to Eddie becoming WWE Champion. A fabulous run, a fantastic run. I hope we talk about that soon. But while that's a huge highlight, we can look at one thing, and one thing for sure. The clash between Goldberg and Brock Lesnar was, in one word, awful. In another word, horrible. In one more word, disastrous. Never in the history of WWE, and you can look this up, have two opponents been booed like Brock Lesnar and Goldberg were in their match. And why were they booed? Well, WWE fans are smart people, and they knew that Brock and Goldberg were leaving after this match. Brock Lesnar would of course go on to dominate the sports world and be a genetic athletic freak, while Goldberg would take some time off. But in 2011, Goldberg had something to say to Vince McMahon. I can't really say anything positive about the man. It's like working for a carny who is driven only by his ego. Business is out of the window as evidenced by what he did with my character. So I don't have a positive thing to say about that guy. So looking at this run, objectively speaking, Goldberg's run in WWE was pretty horrible. But who's to really blame for this? Was it Goldberg thinking everybody was against him? Was it Vince McMahon being against him? Was it Linda McMahon on the phone call? Was it Chris Jericho bad-mouthing him? Was it the fight that him and Chris Jericho had? Or was it the fans that just didn't want him to go over? A lot can be asked, and a lot can be said. While Goldberg looked great on paper for WWE, it was disastrous in execution. Now let's face it, Goldberg didn't want to be there in the first place. But WWE made a lot of promises that they couldn't keep. They said WWE was a less political environment, which depending on who you ask, is exactly what killed Goldberg's run in the start with WWE. It's really hard to blame Goldberg for losing this motivation, but at the same time, no one's ever really had many good words to say about the guy. Growing up, I loved Goldberg in WCW. I also liked his run in WWE. And looking back, I don't really change my mind on it, because I think a lot more could have been done here. Unfortunately, just nothing was really done. We deserved better as fans, Goldberg deserved better, Brock Lesnar deserved better, but unfortunately, we'll never really get that. The best way to put it is wrong place, wrong time. But my question to you, the watcher, the follower, the fan, is who's at fault here? Is it Goldberg? Is it Linda? Is it Vince? Is it Chris? Is it WWE? Or is it us? You be the judge. You let me know in the comments. Let's talk about it. By the way, huge shout out everyone who's been watching this. Make sure to like, follow, subscribe, leave comments. I love seeing everyone pop off in the comments about this. I'm a fan just like all of you, and we can talk all day about this.